Okay, today I'm making a message about something that happened in 1993 that I would like to share that I went through, and it was pretty traumatic. And I lived to tell a story, and I believe that God wants me to tell this, so I'm going to tell it. 1993. I had a cyst on my tailbone, and I also had a temperature of um, 106 degrees. And when I got to the hospital, I drove myself, and I was delirious. And I don't know how I made it to the hospital, but I did. And I went in the emergency room, and I told them that I had 106 fever, and of course they didn't believe me, but they took the temperature, and it was 106.5 when I got to the hospital. And at this time, I was a nursing student, and I knew that I was critical. I knew I was very sick, and I knew that I didn't have health insurance. So I went in, and I did not owe any doctors any money at this time, and I always took it very serious to pay my medical bills, and I um, always paid what I owed to doctors. And so this particular day I went, and they rushed me to the back when they seen how high my fever was. And they asked me how I got to the hospital, and I told them I drove. And the doctor came in, and I showed him the cyst on my tailbone. And I told him that it hurt so bad I couldn't sit down, and that I wanted him to lance it because I was in a lot of pain. He refused to lance it, stating that he was afraid that it was a staph infection, and he didn't want to cause the hospital to have any staph type infection in the hospital. So he proceeded to tell me he was going to release me, and that the only thing that he could do for me is send me home to take the antibiotics. And I told him, "Sir, I do not think I can drive home. I barely made it here." And I really begged him to keep me all night because I did not have enough money for the antibiotics. It was Wednesday, and I got paid on Friday. So he told me, since I did not have health insurance, that they would not keep me at the hospital. And I had a new mission, and that mission was to get a law changed. And I managed to do that. I wrote a letter to Washington, D.C., and I told them that I was basically denied medical treatment because I had been a nursing student, and I knew in order for me to get well, that had to be lanced, and I also needed antibiotics, which I didn't have the cash to get that. I was a single mother making about $300 a week, and it was like rent week. So there was not going to be any medicine gotten by me because I couldn't afford it. So what happened next, I had to drive home, but before I left the hospital, I poked the doctor on the back, and I said, "Let me ask you, sir, I'm not understanding something. I had a hard time driving here because I had 106 fever. So because I don't have health insurance, you are going to release me from the hospital and make me drive my car home with 106.5 fever. And he said, yes, that's correct. We cannot keep you. You don't have health insurance. So I looked at him and said, basically what you're telling me is because I'm poor, but I work full time, and I don't have health insurance, that it's okay to let me die. Is that correct? And he had a strange look on his face, and he turned around and just started walking away. So I had the antibiotic prescription in my hand. I left the hospital with a whole new opinion of doctors and doctors' care, okay? And so I spent the next several years writing letters to Washington, D.C. about what had happened to me and how I thought it was very unfair that a working citizen would be treated in this manner and be denied medical care. And I was not fighting for just myself. I was fighting for every U.S. citizen that was a full-time working person that was denied medical care. And I won. So the law passed. No more denying treatment to people because they don't have health insurance. And so I went home and I said a prayer to God, and I said, God, I trust you with my life. You just showed me the truth about how money rules everyone's life and how they don't care if I live or die because I'm poor, but I work, and I'm a single mother, and I have a child depending on me, but all that didn't matter. And so I cried and I prayed to God, and I got real tired, and I went up and laid on my bed, which is when I fell asleep, and I went above my body and I could see myself sleeping. And I thought to myself, this is weird. I can see myself sleeping, and I've never been able to do this before. And all of a sudden, I went back in my body, and it hurt right around my heart. And I went back into my body, and it hurt. And I woke up, and I was sweating, which was good. That meant the fever broke. And I believed that God would heal me, and He did. And I lived to tell the story. And if you would ask a doctor if a patient came in with the symptoms I was having and had septicemia, if you would ask them if they could live with not taking medicine, with a bacteremia all through my body, the bacteria from the cyst on my spine, they would tell you you cannot live with septicemia and you will not get better without antibiotics. But I lived to tell the story that yes, I lived by my faith in God and my faith in God alone. I never got the prescription filled. I never went to a hospital after that except to have my son in 1994, which I was treated horrible then too. So I have not been really too hospital oriented. I usually just pray to God because God saved my life in 93. And He is what I believe in, and He's what I've always believed in. And so, if you're really scared you're dying, or you really feel like your time's up, I suggest you get on your hands and knees and pray to God before you run to the hospital. I'm not saying you don't need medical treatment. I'm saying, in my case, I believed so much in doctors that God showed me that wasn't what you needed to believe in. I'm not saying don't ever go to the doctor. I'm saying you need antibiotics if you get pneumonia. You need antibiotics if you get an infection. But your first line of defense is God Himself. And I'm here to testify. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So with that, I'll close. And God bless you all. Bye-bye.